Is it a bad time to buy a home? Existing home sales, and are the boomers going to take everything again?
November 22nd, 2023, podcast number 38, Anton Center podcast. We're here. Almost a year after we've started, almost.
Not the podcast, but the shorts started pounding with those first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting time. We're going to see how right we were last year, how wrong we were last year. And today we're going to start off with this first article from an AR. It's a bad time to buy a home, but millions still are.
Yeah, so NAR didn't necessarily say that. You know, that's National Association of Realtors.
That's kind of weird for them to say.
This was my title on it. Is like, it's a bad time to buy a home, or home sales just plunged to 2010 levels. Because NAR released their existing home sale data. You can see that basically since 2021, home sales are just, they're trending basically straight down. Because once they started raising interest rates, it clipped home sales. So home sales came in at an annualized rate of 3.79 million. That annualized rate we have not hit since 2010. Month over month, actually up a little bit, and in total count, and year over year up just a little bit. Inventory down and sales price up 3.4. So for the Crash Bros who said it's all going down in 2023, it looks like we're going to end the median sales price up 3.4%. And then the Seattle Metro, we're up just slightly, and inventory is low here too. So we're reflecting or showing what other people are doing. Nationally, they're at 3.6 months worth of supply. Here locally, we're about 1.7. But the thing that is the headline is, wait a second, if sales are going down, is it a bad time to buy? And should I be investing? Okay, that's what's weird. Because sales are going down, but prices have been appreciating. So it kind of monkeys with your head, right? So it's the stat is reporting these are the lowest home sales since 2010, yet prices are up 3.4%. Why?
Inventory. How many homes are available to sell and how many people are willing to sell?
Bingo. We've talked about this so much. It's that lock-in effect. This is the supply. And this is also, though, rates affecting the market. So as the Federal Reserve raised the Fed funds rate, we crested a little over 8%. Boom, we came down just a little bit yesterday. It did not look this morning, but yesterday we were 7.35, so still high. So those rates are bringing the transaction count down, not the sales price down, due to the low inventory that's happening. Rates are going to stay a little bit higher for a little bit longer. That's what the Fed keeps telling us. So as a home buyer, as an investor, you're sitting there going, but wait, this is the lowest level since 2010. That should be your signal for it's go time to go buy a piece of property, or go buy a piece of land, right, my main man over there, neutrally, or go buy an investment. See, when activity is low, it means there's less buyers looking, there's less offers being made, we're having more price reductions. So even though prices are still appreciating, we're having 36% more price reductions this year than last year. So there's price reductions happening right now. That means it's deal season. I don't know how many times I have to show you the same data a different way to tell you it is still deal season. Now, one of our buyers we went and looked at a resale home, and we went and looked at a new construction home. The resale home, same price home. The builder is willing to buy down the interest rate to a fixed 5.75. The payment on that one is about $4,800 a month, which is still high. The payment on the resale home without the buy down, $6,242 a month. So which one is the buyer going for? They're going to the brand new construction because the builder's buying down the rate. Deals don't always happen in the way we think they're going to happen. They just show up in different areas. Same price, resale versus new construction, but the builder is creating an incentive for you to be able to purchase. We spoke with one of our investors earlier today, and that investor is looking at building an ADU also sometimes known as a mother-in-law, but a detached small unit in the backyard of a property here in Snohomish County. We walk through the house. The property is completely flipped, super clean. It's in perfect condition. The flipper obviously is not a land developer. It's not one of our investors who listens to us regularly. Should know, oh, I can build an ADU in this backyard. So I drug over one of my investors over there, and she goes, this house is perfect. So wait a second, I can build an ADU back there for free. Yes, ma'am. So I get 2 units, and I just got to pay to build the second one. Yes. It's been on the market 26 days, no price reductions, but no offers. So what are the odds we can get something off the price on that one? Plus, she's going to create upside potential.
Highly likely.
Highly likely. Okay. So I called, and I said to the listing broker, I said, hey, I got an investor. How low will you go? And I just shot it right across their bow. Oh, we're not ready to go that low yet. I didn't even say a number. We're not ready to go that low. Okay. Well, what do you think? Well, the seller's thinking they're going to have to pay closing costs. Cool. So we could probably get 3% off the price, 4, 5. He goes, I don't know about 5. So we know we're getting 3 or 4 off the price just by simply asking. So that investor is going to go back. They're going to go do their numbers, as every investor should always do their numbers. Every home buyer should always do their numbers. And then, cool, we'll make an offer sometime after Thanksgiving. 0 offers, nobody looking. It's Thanksgiving week. I know, and I want you to spend time with your family, but realize around holidays, around weekends, around the end of the year, it is deal time because there's less activity. In the parking lot at the office, there are 7 cars right now, and there's 165 agents that work there. So how many are actually working right now? Very few. Cool. So for those of us that are working, we're going to go find some deals.
For sure. It's interesting you say not only is it the season, which is winter, slow, prices usually get more competitive, right, in terms of for the buyers. But then even I'd say the season we are in this decade, especially agents, but I think just anybody related to housing except for builders. Builders are probably happy, right? They're just building and building. So the best time to get a deal is when everybody's mind isn't on deals. And that's why no matter what the numbers are, because of course, you know, the flip side of this, high interest rates, high mortgage payments, high house prices. But the question is it more likely to go higher and be worse? Or is it more likely that it's going to get better and go lower? Most likely, probably going to get worse. Prices will go high because interest rates probably will come down or just stay. And you'll wish you bought now. And so actually, I'll bring it back. 2010, I wish I bought more properties.
We all do.
And this feels like 2010.
Yes.
Where was everybody's mind in 2010?
In 2000, and I mean, it was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
But wouldn't you say 10 was like the darkest?
I don't know, because my personal situation had started improving so much by then, and we were climbing out of our hole, that I was ignoring the media by that time. So for me personally, and what I was seeing, 2009 was the hardest. But you are right, from just a sheer general level of foreclosures that were hitting the market. 2010 was like peak problem time for us, because we were doing bank-owned properties at that time. In peak problem time, we were in heaven. Okay, that problem hit us way before. What we're going to go to later, though, is we're going to talk about where interest rates are going and why. But I want to just wrap this all up for people so they're on the same page. If the interest rates, or because interest rates hit over 8% and they're coming down when we've probably hit peak interest rates, and the Fed didn't raise again, and we still had appreciation, so prices went up, that means as interest rates go down, prices will appreciate faster. That's what you have to understand. So if you want a deal as a buyer or investor, you must start now. And then there's going to be this beautiful inflection point that is coming. But you can't time this inflection point perfectly. And the beautiful inflection point will be as cap rates have peaked, okay, because cap rates are rising right now. This is on the multifamily side. But as cap rates are rising and as interest rates start going down, that's going to be a perfect peak to be purchasing as an investor. As a home buyer, there's not going to be that perfect peak. Your perfect peak will be what's best for you and your family.
For sure. There's a phrase that you just kind of came up with that I think that's a trigger for paying attention. Peak problems.
Yes.
2010, peak problems.
Yes.
Most foreclosures, most inventory. Maybe I'm complete opposite. This is what's interesting. Circumstance was completely different, but peak problem was the unifying kind of like sentiment. And that's right now, peak problem is highest interest rates we've experienced in a long time, highest home prices, in even appreciation, and then the last one, high negative sentiment.
And lowest transaction count since 2010.
Peak problems.
A peak problem. We're getting t-shirts for this one.
Hey, great Aunt Tilly and peak problems, okay? But it's going to be too late. So just the last thing I'll say on it.
Yeah.
It's going to be too late if you listen to this and wait another year or two. Right now, you need to not just start looking, but potentially getting to the point where you understand the market so you can put in deals, plant the seeds, because you and I both know, like on the development side especially, things are going to just take longer because during peak problems, also there's less people willing to create solutions, and you have to be the one to create the solutions. It just is a headache.
I was asked this week, should I buy something this winter or should I wait till next summer? And my answer to that is, here in the Seattle Metro, you will pay $45,000 more for the average home by June of 2024. So if you want to wait, I'm cool with that. Just realize that's $45K more. And their response was, I need to save more money. Are you going to save for your down payment plus $50K more in order to make up for that appreciation? The answer is probably not. That's the crazy thing.
Would you say 45,000 more?
45,000 more.
Wow.
So let's walk through the math real quickly. Average price home, $700,000. Okay. Average appreciation last year was 7%. Okay. That's like $49,000. I just rounded down and called it 45 just to give them a simple number. But even if the market appreciated 3% of $700,000 is $21,000. So in these high appreciation markets that are on the coasts, I mean, they're always on the coast, they're near water, they've got good, jobs, things like that. You can't out save appreciation. Now, if you live Midwest, slow appreciation market, you can. You just can't in these metros.
Next topic. What should buyer and investors ask for in this market? How do you get a deal?
Yeah. So this just goes right into what we were just talking about. And that's why I wanted to bring this one in. Like, how do I get a deal? What are some actual tips? What could I ask for? Buyers, sellers, agents, they don't think about these things. We're going to go from obvious to super complex at the end with a couple negotiation tips right there at the final part. The first and most obvious one is price. You can always ask for money off the price. Now, the seller is less willing to give money than they are to maybe give these next 15 items because price has the most emotion attached to it, because people can't solve multiple variable problems in their head. So they get stuck on price as the only piece of the problem. So if you can't win on price, now start asking for closing costs. So closing costs, generally speaking, a seller can contribute, depending on the loan, up to 3%. In FHA loans, they could contribute up to 6% of the total purchase price towards closing costs. You could ask for an interest rate buydown, which is another type of closing cost item that the seller can contribute to. You could ask for cash for repairs, credits for repairs. So let me give you an example. You walk through the house and you notice it's got carpet from the 70s. And maybe you give $10,000 off the price and you ask the seller to replace all the carpet or to give you a $10,000 credit for the carpet. What's interesting is even though that's $20,000 off the price, most sellers do not interpret that as $20,000 because their brain gets focused on one variable, price. You can ask for a deep cleaning. Very few people ask for carpets to be professionally cleaned and all the windows to be washed and the gutters to be cleaned out. That's going to cost you money. You could ask the seller to buy leased items. An example would be a propane tank or a security system that the seller's leasing, and you just write it right in the purchase and sale that the seller agrees to purchase those. You could ask them to pay for your home inspection. This one, careful with this one. This is the one that's pissed off the most sellers. I'm paying for your inspection. You could ask them for attorney's fees, for escrow fees. You could ask them to purchase a home warranty. A home warranty is, they're anywhere between $600 to $1,500, which then gives you a warranty over the next year on the home. You could ask for early occupancy. So for example, your lease is ending and you don't want to extend it. What if you could occupy that property 3 weeks early and save a month's worth of rent as you're purchasing it? You could maybe give the seller a little bit later occupancy because you don't have a payment for the first month. So the seller gets time to move and then maybe they give you money off the price. You can ask for appliances. So just because you walk through the home, through the rental property, do not assume all the appliances are included. You can ask for their furniture. So, best deal we ever did. This was in Snohomish, up on one of the hills. I'm not going to say specifically which one, or you'll figure this one out. This is like 2016. We get him a good deal on the house. We get him closing cost. The ping pong table, the pool table, the riding lawnmower, the pool behind, the hot tub, $10,000 worth of furniture inside the house, the kegerator, the beer fridge, and the giant chest freezer.
I want the kegerator.
It was a refrigerator that they had literally built a keg into with a spout coming out.
That's why I want it.
But when we originally asked the seller, would they give up any of these items? They said no. We came up on the price and asked for all these items, and the seller just gave them all away. And the dollars were not equivalent, but then the seller didn't want to have to move it, and the seller was getting what they want. Yard equipment. So we sell lots of properties that are larger. Okay, so we're talking riding lawnmowers, sometimes tractors, a track hoe, an excavator. We know some guys that might need one. These last two right here. A seller carryback in a second position. Okay, now let me paint the whole picture on this one. If my first mortgage is 7% and I have that in conventional for $500,000, and the seller carries a second, that's $200,000. So $700,000 total. And that second is only at 4%. My total interest rate, my blended rate, is cheaper than if I would have got 7% on the whole $700,000. So maybe as you're negotiating with the seller and they won't give you the specific price, you try for the seller carryback, and the creme de la creme is full seller financing. I was sent a social message today on Facebook, and she asked me how much seller financing I have seen. I've said it before in previous videos, so we have the documentation. I've seen more seller financing in the last year than I have in the last 5 years put together. Seller financing is in vogue. It's cool right now. Why? Because if they can get 5-6% on their money and it's secured against a piece of real estate, it feels safer than having it in Silicon Valley Bank. Because as that bank goes under, is my money actually protected? And so I think that's what's causing it to come back in vogue. And also people they want to keep some of these cheaper interest rates. They want to keep the property, or maybe they just want or need the cash flow. So more seller financing.
Seller financing, on that note, why it's such a game changer for both sides. Number one, on the seller side, you would assume they just want the cash.
Yep.
But what if they become the bank, and instead of just getting the price that they wanted, they're making way more? Buyers, if you've ever looked at the amortization schedule, what you should always do, you realize that you're not paying $500,000 for the house. If you have a mortgage, you end up paying $700,000, $800,000. You can flip this on the seller and say, hey, do you want the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000?
Bingo.
And there's a lot of people that, yeah, I'd rather have that.
Bingo.
Especially if they're not going to touch it. On the flip side of that, as a buyer, nobody wants a 7-8% mortgage right now. But guess what? you might be able to get a 5, 6, 7% lower than what you can get with the bank. With the seller, everybody wins in this situation,
Yes.
except maybe the agents, because now you have to figure out how to get paid.
So I want to leave them with 3 simple negotiation tips. 1, understand that a good real estate negotiation is chess, but you only get 3 moves. So you have to plan where you want to land and where you want to be. The reason I say 3 moves is if you go round and round 5, 6, 7 times, your ability to negotiate goes away because the seller digs their heels in and just gets annoyed and says no. 2, the seller doesn't care about your emotions. You shouldn't either. You need to write down your walk away number and then walk away. You need to be willing to throw the offer out there, and if it doesn't work, walk away. You don't have to chase every deal. You don't have to, complete every offer just because you made it. 3, time is a phenomenal negotiator. So this is like super hack for our investors right now. We make offers, and when they don't work, we just wait. And then we pick up the phone and we call them 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks later. Hey, Benji, remember that offer I sent you? How's it look today? And you would be surprised. Now, this represents, let's call it maybe 2%, 5%. Okay, so we're talking like low number, 1 in 20, 1 in, 40, But if you follow up and you're making 10, 20 offers and none of them worked. So you made 20 offers, none of them worked. Go back to each one 2 weeks later and you just keep doing that. As long as that property is not sold, I guarantee you in the next 1 to 6 months, one of those people's going to sell it to you at your price. But it requires time, energy, effort, and keeping my emotions in check. I have to do this. And I've done this for 20 years. So I write down the number that we're willing to pay. It's in the offer spreadsheet. And then we just keep coming back to it and looking at it again. We sent the same offer. This was on a land development project. I got to make this really clear. To the same seller for over 2 years before he accepted. But he accepted. And so we probably touched him once a month. So 24 times. How long does it take you to make a phone call?
30 seconds, 60 seconds.
Yeah, let's call it 5 minutes to be on the high side. Okay, so you made 24 5-minute phone calls to get a couple $100,000 off the price. What's your dollar per hour?
Pretty high.
It's ridiculous. And that's how you have to look at this as a buyer or an investor in a market like this.
Another little tip about negotiations too. You said don't get emotionally attached to any one deal. Well, one of the ways you win negotiations is have many different deals.
Yes.
Because if you're just attached to one, then the outcome of that one person or the results of that negotiation, everything's attached to that. If you have a whole bunch, there's 2 things that happen. 1, you'll have more chances to win negotiations. And 2, you can walk away from any one of the negotiations. That's the most powerful thing. Because guess what? On the other side of the negotiations, they're banking on you getting desperate and raising your price or getting agitated. No, you just say bye. And so that's why not only is the power in the follow-up, but it's in the waiting game. It's kind of like chicken, but not like the one where 2 cars go at each other. It's the ones like who's going to move first.
Bingo. And
you don't have to move if you got other properties that you're also waiting on too. So especially in this season right now, waiting. There's going to be even more deals. So don't feel the need to hurry into a deal because probably there are going to be more deals to come.
Let me flip it over. As long as you don't prevent yourself from never doing anything. Don't wait till 5 years from now. Waiting is fine.
I've made that mistake.
Yeah, we all have. We all have. But don't wait too long. Hold your ground. But the wisdom you said, the beautiful thing that you said was make multiple offers, have multiple deals available. If I have multiple offers and multiple deals available, I'm not as emotionally attached to them and I'm going to get one of them. Plain and simple.
All right, so let's move on to this next topic, the Fed FOMC meeting minutes. Just some quick thoughts. It happened yesterday or a couple days ago.
What is today? Wednesday? Yeah, it was yesterday.
Okay, can you go through what it was, what was kind of the takeaway, and what should buyers, sellers, investors know moving forward? And what's it say about maybe the rest of the year?
Yeah. So when they release the meeting minutes notes, it's actually just a press release. So it's not like a public broadcast. The Fed has two tools available to them. They can raise rates and they can use their voice. So in November, they didn't raise rates. And the market was getting really restrictive. Interest rates were going over 8%, and we're just getting pinch on the liquidity side. They didn't raise rates. Bonds came down a little bit, and interest rates cooled down slightly. So what I thought was going to happen in these notes, because the notes are released later, so there's time for them to come in and move some notes around to change the message. Because remember, they only have the Fed funds rate and the message. So I thought the message was going to come out a little stronger, to be honest. This came out pretty dovish, in my opinion.
Dovish being not as aggressive.
Not as aggressive.
Yeah. A little more conservative.
Soft,
yeah.
Not as hawkish, not as we are going to just do whatever it takes no matter what breaks. Now, of course, this is my opinion. Other people probably disagree, but basically they were unanimous, so there's no dissension yet on the Fed board. I think as we near the end of this inflation cycle and interest rate cycle, we're going to start to see some dissension. You're going to see the doves break to one side and the hawks break to another side. But right now, unanimously vote not to raise. So the stock market right now is betting no raises in December. We may have to make some more good bets over there. Well, and if you saw what he won at the jackpot in the slot machine, we may be able to raise our bets on the next one.
It's going to be a little thicker here. Inside joke here.
So the Fed staff expected potential growth for the next 2 years to be roughly flat, with unemployment up slightly between now and 2026. They talked about not having rate reductions, until then. But the stock market and everyone else is betting against them. They talked about real exports and imports and of goods, and how services were still growing at a robust pace. But it's interesting because China and Germany have started exporting their deflation over to us. In other words, inflation is the rate of price increases. Deflation is prices actually going down. And in Germany and China, they are actually seeing some deflation in their market. We are still inflating in ours. But then that comes our direction through cars, through computers, through TVs, things of that nature. That was really interesting.
They said this in the meeting?
It was in the notes, yes.
Interesting.
Another thing that was really interesting was, and this is where the hawks and the doves might break against each other, there was talk about how if they did lower rates, how would that affect quantitative tightening? So quantitative tightening is where the Fed is lowering their balance sheet by selling off the bonds that they've been buying. So that's one thing that's been keeping rates up, is that quantitative tightening. And the thought is, or what they were talking about is, if interest rates, real rates, we talked about this on a different podcast, if inflation comes down, then the effective real interest rate to businesses and consumers is higher. So therefore they could lower and still be in a restrictive stance. Can they lower and continue quantitative tightening at the same time? Don't know. Never been done in history. Or would those work opposite each other because they're different monetary factors? Lastly, the Fed basically said, we're not done, higher for longer. And the stock market and everyone else is saying, yeah, right.
BS.
Yeah, hold my beer. We don't believe you. So here's our prediction. Okay, our prediction is that we believe, one, we've seen peak interest rates in this cycle, unless some major thing happens. Two, that interest rates will come down into the sixes sometime in 2024. Three, as interest rates come down, that will cause residential real estate and commercial real estate. It'll start to slowly buoy up commercial. but it's going to cause residential to really light back on fire. In the 6s, it'll probably unlock a lot more demand. That was one of the things that they did warn about. Lastly, was there is potential for a sharp decline in commercial real estate valuations and other assets, aka stocks, bonds, things like that, that may be experiencing overvaluation due to the loose monetary policy. And we've mentioned this before, but we know office and commercials really beat up. We know multifamily is going through some struggles because of these high rates and bridge debt. I read somewhere, though, only like 3,500 multifamilies are generally in trouble. But these are big multifamilies. So this is multifamilies that are like over 50 units. So roughly about 3.5% to 4% of the total multifamily market has the potential to be in trouble right now. Because the dollars are so big, that could be a lot of trouble, but it's not a 2008 bubble tsunami crash, because those foreclosure numbers and trouble numbers were almost 3 times that. Yes, there's pain coming to multifamily. So let's go back to what we just talked about in our second discussion item. There's going to become this crazy inflection point where caps right now, cap rates are rising in multifamily. In other words, the yield that it gives you, your return on your investment, is rising right now. And sometime in 2024 or 2025, and it's going to be different for every metro, there's going to become this point where you're going to be able to do a land development project that's multifamily or townhome, or buy a multifamily where the cap rate is still rising, but interest rates are actually trending down. And the seller that's not totally paying attention to that is going to give up more opportunity than they need to. Because as interest rates go down, cap rates will naturally start to float back down. The reason cap rates rise is because it creates a negative arbitrage. What I mean by that, this is complex real estate right here. So I'm sorry we're losing some people. If a mortgage is 7% and the cap rate is 5.5%, you shouldn't get debt on it. You should just pay for it in cash, because you have a 1.5% negative arbitrage on the debt.
Basically, you're not making money in that situation.
You could still make money depending on what you put down, but there's a natural negative arbitrage between the yield and the rate of the debt. So as that debt rate comes down, there's going to become just this gangster, super awesome inflection point where maybe you could buy the cap rate at something and it's a value add and it's 6, and I could bump the cap rate to a 7.5. But interest rates, as I'm purchasing it, are sitting already at 6, heading towards 5.5. So my spread overall in there that I'm building in could be between 2 to 2.5%, which is huge across a 100-unit multifamily, 200-unit multifamily.
And this is specifically on commercial properties, commercial debt, and that's why these numbers might be complex for maybe somebody that's in the residential space. Yes. But if I were to summarize what you're saying is, start paying attention to the numbers, start paying attention to the properties, and there's going to be a point where, and this is one big thing that probably confuses people, commercial debt interest rates change because it's not 30-year mortgages. It's like every 5, 10, 7 years or whatever, right?
Commercial debt and residential debt, they go in the same direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so as residential debt changes, commercial debt will change.
But you have to renew it.
But you have to renew it every 5 years.
So this is what you're saying. It might not be the best deal right now, but it could get way better. That's what confuses people when they hear the arbitrage or the spread.
Or you're doing a value add.
Yeah.
So you're in some type of non-fixed debt or floating debt for a 2-year period anyway. So you go in to buy a value add. Value add is you go fix everything. So you add value. And you got in and debt was 7.5%. And as you're getting in, it naturally floated down. So then when you go to refinance it, because you raised all the rents, you're refinancing it at 6.5 instead of the 8.5 you started at.
So my last question on this, and I really want to move to this next topic, is Are you seeing commercial investors get excited about this?
No.
Or see, like, it's not on their radar?
This is not on their radar yet.
Why is that?
Because they're not looking far enough into the future. This is the tip. This is the thing, the hack our listeners need to pay attention to. This is not 6 months. This is 9 to 18 months out. We're looking into the future for you right now so you can be prepared. Because to be honest, this may even affect a duplex, a fourplex, a sixplex if you're in the right spot at the right moment. We're trying to give you the glimpse of the future. Most of those people right now they're licking their wounds. They're going, it hurts. Oh, there's no good deals in the market. Or they're the hardcore vultures who are just getting prepared and making lowball offers.
All right, so this next one is interesting because of the significance of this generation, okay? So baby boomers got rich off real estate, and they are in perfect position to do it again. So baby boomers are the generation after World War II,
Yep.
which are in that retirement age, right? And so it's probably anywhere from, 55 to 75-ish range?
Yeah.
Would you say that's a baby boomers? And the reason this is significant, they got rich off of real estate because they were buying homes, one was like 50 grand, and it's worth $500,000 doing nothing. And they were buying rentals maybe here and there, and those also they bought at 100 grand, now $500,000. So the story is this: it's going to happen again. So why would it happen?
And baby boomers bought homes in the 70s and 80s and then experienced that appreciation cycle, that massive appreciation cycle. So right now, baby boomers have, this number blew my mind, $82 trillion inside of their total nest egg. So
does that include equity?
This is equity, stocks, businesses,
retirement
everything.
Fund.
Retirements, accounts, all of it. And let's break it down for them real quick. About 24% of that wealth, 19 trillion is in real estate, 16 trillion is in their pensions, and 21 trillion is, in stocks. So the baby boomers got rich off of real estate. They have the money. And so this is that K-shaped recovery that we talked about before. This is the rich get richer. This is the people who have assets. This is the melt up that we talked about. This is why I went and found this. I was like, what is the number? 82 trillion can be deployed when the market is beat up.
So you're saying Aunt Tilly's going to be on speed dial?
Dear Aunt Tilly's on speed dial. Hey, I need 82 trillion and let's go find some real estate. But let's think about this. Some of them are fully into retirement and they're not going to do this. And yet I have two hardcore investors in my life. One of them is 72. The other one is 84. And they are hardcore 40 plus hour a week investing all the time. So I think people think of baby boomer and retirement like, no, these are full-time, older gentlemen doing this. But here's what's so crazy. Because they have the money, because they have the assets, they can take home equity lines of credit. They can take a line of credit against their stock account. They have cash values in their life insurance. So they have access to capital versus the other generations do not. The millennials, Gen Z, possibly even some Gen Xers. They can then redeploy that against good deals. And where are we at? We are in deal season. So this is the baby boomers who have the assets, have the ability to double their assets over the next decade because they can deploy them. While inflation is eating the bottom half's spending ability, these baby boomers with their 82 trillion can literally take their money and just go beat everyone with a sledgehammer with it. I love it. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty awesome to see how much they've created. And I want the next generations to do the same thing. So what do we have to do? Because I'm not a baby boomer. And most of us aren't going to inherit a bunch of money from a baby boomer. So cut our expenses. We know inflation is going to be around for a while longer and things are just going to be more expensive. You got to get a side hustle, okay? Or you got to get the promotion, or you got to start that business. So I'm cutting my expenses. I'm not buying things on credit cards. I need to make a little more money. And then I need to get that money deployed so I can catch this ride too and be on the top of that K-shaped recovery and not on the bottom of that K-shaped recovery.
Recently, there was a comment on great Aunt Tilly and how we're, taking advantage of her. If you actually go back 50, 60, 70 years, that was a common thing.
Oh, 100%.
To get a family member or somebody with more money to lend it to you.
Yes.
It actually became abnormal or less common because banks' interest rates were so low, it just didn't make sense anymore. And so they were making a lot of money on real estate stocks and just investing in things that had a good return, and it was just easier. So we're just getting back to a time where you said the word hustling. You just got to really figure out new solutions to new problems right now. Yeah. And it's totally okay because remember, on the flip side of this, yes, we're the ones that maybe get the funds to deploy it to some kind of project and get a return on it. They're getting a return on their money as well. And so it's called diversification. And I think that that's a whole nother podcast about creative financing, seller financing, Aunt Tilly financing. Yeah. And I the reason I bring it up is there's probably people in your life, if you learn the market, you figure out what you're doing, and you sound competent and you're working with professionals, a deal is closer than you think.
Always is.
You just got to think outside the box. It's no longer going to the bank and getting low interest rates and it's a normal thing. And agents didn't even have to work and just freaking sign paperwork. And you got a rental and then if there's so much demand, you're going to have to do a little extra work. But in this season, you'll be the ones that not only get the deals, but make way more money. We want to talk about 82 trillion baby boomers. Do you want to be part of that next 500 trillion generation? Yes. Well, guess what? You can either be the generation, a part of that generation which has no assets, because I'm thinking about Gen Z and Nucci over here listening to all this like, hey, what is going on? We can't even get a mortgage right now. But guess what? You actually can. You just have to do things a little bit differently.
And the idea of Dear Aunt Tilly is simple. You have a friend, you have a family member, you have someone in your life who knows, likes, loves, and trusts you, okay? And then you find a deal, and then maybe they help be the bank. Maybe they co-sign it. Maybe they're a finish carpenter, and they help you flip the house, It's bringing other people in from outside so that you can get it done. And so that they can win and you can win. Not so you can win and they lose. It's so both parties win. And sometimes that's them being the bank. Sometimes that's people co-signing. Sometimes it's them bringing talent or expertise. What if Dear Aunt Tilly is a CFO and you bring her in to analyze your deal to see if you're actually making money? That's this idea. It doesn't have to be, I'm just going to go borrow money from this poor, cute little old lady. It's I'm helping them and they're helping me, but I have to understand my market and then find the deal and then be able to execute that.
But it's okay to find the cute old lady that has money too and let her be the bank. All right, you guys. Hey, that was a good podcast. We're going to go ahead and end it there. Subscribe for more podcasts about real estate and specifically the Seattle market.